I remember good things, bad things, and sad things, pretty much. I remember that we had butterflies when I went to Paris. My dog.
Whether 6 years old or any age beyond, as we embark on a new year, we almost can't help reflecting on the year we've left behind.
I remember when my mom hurt her leg in the train station.
So why do some moments stand out?
I remember when I burnt my hands when I was 3. Now I'm 6.
And others fade away.
I don't remember my last year birthday party. Last year, when it was St. Patrick's Day.
And even if your memory is good, is it ever accurate?
Do you remember flying on a plane?
No. My mom didn't videotape that.
Who we are is our memories.
Elizabeth Phelps is a research psychologist at New York University's Center for Neuroscience.
If you're trying to understand the human psyche, you have to understand, first and foremost, memory. I mean, it really is telling you everything about who we are.
So we really are our memories.
We are our memories, absolutely.
Memories make up our life stories, but experts say as the years go by and we change and develop, our recollections adjust with us, whether we know it or not.
What do you remember?
What do you remember? What do you remember?
What do you remember? The children's game called Telephone, played here by first graders at this elementary school in New York, is commonly used by researchers to explain how memories evolve.
What do you remember?
All memories do tend to be very malleable. What happens is that there's a process of rehearsal.
Dr. Pauline McHugh researches memory at the NYU School of Medicine's Brain Health Center.
You know, you have a very significant memory, you tend to play it over and over in your head, and every time it can be changed and altered subtly depending on what your feelings were about it, what your, again, past experiences were, and it can end up oftentimes with the basic elements intact, but the color or the tenor of it being very, very different.
What's your number?
What happened when, who was wearing what, who said what to whom at what time, that can be very different.
What's the number?
If our memories are constantly changing,
Yeah.
one would ask, what good are they?
Well, I mean, I think, you know, they are changing, but it's not the case that they're always completely inaccurate just because they change. But memory is to help you guide yourself through life, right? And what challenges you encounter at different points in your lives are going to change, right? So you don't necessarily want the same interpretation of a memory when you're 15, you know, and when you're 50.
The girl is long gone, right?
You adjust memory as you get older to make life bearable. I think what memory does is it releases you, if you're lucky, and you tend to remember the better times, I think.
Writers David Halberstam, Talese, and A.E. Hotchner have been very lucky. And many of those better times were spent here at Elaine's, a legendary Manhattan hangout. Now that they are considered among the best writers of their generation, even the struggle and self-doubt of their early years are tinged with the color rose.
We were here in the 60s before any of us knew what was going to happen or not happen. And it was very formative, I think, for all of us that we would be here regularly and discuss our woes and our wannabes and almost was and all those things that we were doing.
In fact, from a less modest perspective, in the early 60s, all three were about to break through. Hotchner's classic memoir, Papa Hemingway, was released to glowing reviews in 1965. Talese, who was already a prominent newspaper reporter, published his first book in 1961, and a few years later was hailed for creating what would be dubbed the new journalism with his magazine work, including profiles of Frank Sinatra and Joe DiMaggio. And Halberstam received the Pulitzer Prize for his reporting on Vietnam in 1964. So what do they remember most? The camaraderie that got them through both the turbulence and the triumphs.
I remember in '64 in the city room of the New York Times, and I believe that David will have to correct me, but as I recall, the information came by ticker. I'm like here next to Halberstam, and we're reading, and then we see David Halberstam won the Pulitzer Prize for his reporting. Sweet moments, and I remember that.
After years of friendship, some memories are not so sweet. Among the worst is a feud in the 1970s between Talese and Hotchner.
We didn't talk for a year and a half.
It was more than that, and it was all over a stupid tennis game. We were playing tennis in Chicago, and we had a fight while playing. We were partners. We were playing doubles. But it'd be interesting. Sometimes we compare notes.
You know what would be interesting?
That would be fun.
If we would say right now, what is your recollection of the argument that caused it? And he would have one version of it, and I'd have a completely different version.
Even to this day.
Maybe
to this day, right now.
Maybe there's doors to keep closed as you get older.
Indeed. Experts say, like fingerprints, no two memories are identical.
We met at 9.
We met at 8.
I was on time.
No, you were late.
From the lighthearted musical Gigi,
I remember it well,
to Remembrance of Things Past by Marcel Proust, the elasticity of memory is a universal theme.
Can two people look at a situation, have the same memory, and have that memory stay consistent over the years? If you and I experience something, are we going to see it the same way?
Very unlikely.
Why is that?
Because you come to the situation with a set of expectations and biases, and I come with a different set. And so those things, when we have a memory, it's a combination of what's actually out there in the world and what's going on inside of us.
What's going on inside of us has a lot to do with this area in the middle of the brain, the hippocampus and the amygdala. The hippocampus and regions around it record two basic components of memories, episodic or life memories and semantic, factual memories.
There was probably a day when you came home from school and could tell your mom, guess what, today I learned that George Washington was the first president of the United States. But you've lost those details. What you have now is the knowledge.
As for this bump at the end of the hippocampus, the amygdala, that comes in during highly emotional events, say a car crash.
A few things are going to come up when you go back to that street corner. One, you might remember the car accident and the details. Two, your body might tense up. You might start sweating a little bit. The amygdala is going to underlie those physiological emotional responses.
The stronger the emotion, the more lasting the memory, up to a point.
If you have too much stress, that starts interfering with your memory, and then you stop being able to make memories as powerfully or as accurately as you were before.
Most of us believe we have vivid recollections of the events of September 11th, the Kennedy assassination, the Challenger explosion. But researchers say those memories aren't as accurate as we think. Consider what happened after test subjects saw filmmaker Michael Moore's movie, Fahrenheit 9/11.
Just seeing that movie now changes how you remember that event.
And I think memory...
Writers Hotchner, Talese, and Halberstam have all navigated that murky area between history and memory.
Nobody's memory is as exact as anybody else's about any one event. It's always selective.
All history, I think, though, is also selectivity and flawed memory blended with statistics. I mean, how accurate can the history of the Civil War be? It can be or World War I. But then you think one thing leads to the other, and memory triggers more memory, and that enlarges a picture. It might be selective, it might be idealized, but whatever it is, it's as close as we can get to the truth of ourselves.
And suddenly it's hard to find the memories you left behind. Remember.
Which is to say, memories are our truths, whether they are true or not.
I tell people that my first memory in life was the day that President Kennedy was shot. I was 3 years old. I don't know if that's the case or not, but I have thoughts of that day.
Probably not.
Probably not, really.
Yeah, at 3 years old, we actually don't really remember those memories later. So probably your memory of that is a combination of what you heard and what you saw afterwards, and and it was important, and other people cared about it. So you formed a memory, and you have that expectation that you should have that strong memory, and that probably influences that as well.
So I'm not alone.
Yeah, that's normal.
Normal, flawed, cherished. Sounds like people.
My earliest memory was when I found out yesterday that I was going to be on TV. I was going to be on TV.